Hi, everyone. It's 4 o'clock in New York. Donald Trump, you may have heard this already, waded into Madison Square Garden last night, and he did so amid plunging poll numbers, rising prices for just about everything, and an increasingly angry and agitated political coalition. Appearing to expect the kind of reception that he gets from his cabinet members who fawn all over him, thinking that that would somehow extend to 20,000 New York Knicks fans. Here's how that went down.
And bright stars through the perilous fight.
But it wasn't just that they were booing inside Madison Square Garden. Here's how the broader city of New York received Donald Trump. I've never heard so much beeping as I did watching local news and the game last night. But Donald Trump is never one to let that reality get in the way of his own egos or delusions. And so this was his readout of how he was received at the Garden last night.
I thought great. I mean, I thought it was amazing, actually. You mean when they had the camera on me? I thought it was very good, yeah. It was certainly amazing. It was. I think mostly cheers. It was loud and it was very enthusiastic.
Because of course last night was all about him and mostly cheers. That's not what anybody else heard. Let's let you hear it for yourself. This is that so-called mostly cheers, maybe from a different angle. I think Rachel called them salty reception. Now, there's another explanation, though. It is possible that he didn't know how badly he was received. He appeared to take a little snoozeroo during the game. I think he might be the only person who was sleeping during last night's game. Trump's 7 hours in New York City is as good of a way into talking about where his entire presidency stands. He appears to many Americans to be asleep at the wheel 17 months into his second term as president. His approval rating remains at near record lows. It's 35% in the newest poll, a Reuters survey released yesterday. Americans say they are growing frustrated with Trump's economy. And despite Trump's best efforts to gaslight the American people about how he would like things to be, saying the same gaggle where he said it was amazing, his reception, not the game or Jalen Brunson or Josh Hart or anybody else, just the cheers for him. That's what he was talking about. He also said that gas prices are, quote, not that high, relatively speaking. But at this point, voters aren't buying it. In that same Reuters poll, 70% of Americans disapprove of Donald Trump's handling of the cost of living. 59% of Americans say they expect gas prices specifically to get higher in the coming year. One MSNOW analyst, a former staffer from Donald Trump's first term, puts it like this, quote, the president has lost all credibility on the economy, the number one priority of the American people. He has lost control over the ending of the war. The administration is rudderless. Trump is enamored with being president, yet wants nothing to do with the job. After giving up on governing with no vision, the president has turned to what's simply in his line of sight. Event after unrelated event, speech after rambling speech. He is obsessed with what he perceives as the beautification of his D.C. bubble. He talks about fountains, his arch, his ballroom, a repainted reflecting pool, a UFC fight at the White House, and a partisan rally for himself after the failure of a planned concert on the National Mall. His appointees proposed plastering his face on passports and on $250 bills. Banners with Trump's looming image adorn government buildings in Washington, while Trump rants about not being able to put his name on the Kennedy Center. The second Trump administration is already a lost cause, at home and abroad. He has made himself a lame duck president and is getting lamer by the day. Donald Trump dragging down America as his political impotence reveals itself in bouts of authoritarian fits and spurts is where we begin today with some of our favorite reporters and friends. staff writer for The Atlantic. Political analyst Ashley Parker is back with us. It's so nice to see you, my friend. Also joining us, former senior advisor to President Biden and Vice President Harris, the former mayor of New Orleans. Mitch Landrieu's here. It's very nice to see you too, my friend. He's now the co-chair of American Bridge 21st Century. With me at the table for the very first time, former New York State Senator Daniel Squadron. He's the author of a must-read new book called The Fourth Branch, How State Government Can Save Our Union. We'll talk about that in a minute. I'll start with you. You were at the game.
I was.
Did they boo? No.
Look,
but it was never going to. Can we talk about the game for a second? Like, it doesn't have to happen in 4. We're going to win.
we can't get greedy.
Yeah, and it doesn't have to.
Years.
Yeah.
Let's let it come.
It's coming.
You know,
it's coming.
I will never say Knicks and whatever. Just Knicks.
Yeah.
Go Knicks. So I was at the game.
Yeah. Did they boo?
Well, you need to be fair to the president.
No. Some people cheered. I heard.
There were 3 less popular people in that arena.
Okay.
The refs.
Yeah, I know. Yes.
They got booed more. But beyond that, I'd have to say the next loudest set of boos I heard was right there during the national anthem when the president's face came on the screen.
And I mean, the thing about his face on the screen, and actually this to me, as sort of an ex-staffer, I always think about the staff's decisions. If you never put his face on the screen, you could have said all the boos were for the refs. And you're right, there were enough. It's almost like the vanity is the thing that lets everyone else see how unpopular he is. But he's in this narcissistic hamster wheel where he couldn't resist having his face up there. So, of course, everybody booed.
Well, of course. And, maybe New York City is obviously not a Trump town. Maybe they were thinking lots of people are coming in from parts of Jersey and Long Island, where he did a lot better. Yeah. Those secondary market tickets are really expensive. There's industries where he did a lot better. But even when you would expect more popularity in that arena last night because of who was able to be there, the boos were still that loud. I think it's a real sign that his base is collapsing. Yeah,
I mean, Ashley, you don't need one of your epic 36-source stories to know that, like, the pressure cooker's about to burst. I mean, this is, and I wondered this out loud around the State of the Union about his information loop, the caliber and the quality of information he's getting. To me, he seems on top of everything else in an information bubble. Like, he's just not hearing the truth about anything.
Well, I'd say it's 2 things, right? He does have people around him, not everyone, but a lot of people who tell him what he wants to hear, who are sort of like little puppies depositing at his feet, polls that wouldn't really pass muster on your network or my magazine that, show him doing well. So there is some of that. But I actually think one thing that is so striking is what you actually played of him getting booed, and then his response about the great reaction and how it was mainly cheers. And he has always had that ability to sort of will himself, and often other people in the country, others around him, into that level of self-delusion and will his own reality. And it has served him well. And at the end of the day, it's kind of benign. If he wants to claim that all those boos were cheers for him, fine. But one thing that has been so striking about the recent months in his presidency is he has run up against the one reality he cannot will, which is voters know what gas prices are. Voters know how much it costs to go to the grocery store. Voters know if they are now going to 2 grocery stores to use all of their coupons or to get the best deals at each one. And they know how much money they have in their checking accounts or how much they don't at the end of the month. And this is the one thing, despite this long history and lifetime of willing reality, that he cannot will. And that is why he is paying a political price in his approval numbers.
I mean, Mitch, I think it's that plus the wars. I was around someone who's been enamored with Donald Trump for a decade, and she still likes him a lot, but she hates the war. And so it's this triple betrayal. I think 1 is the economy, 2 is the war, and 3 is the vibes are embarrassing. I mean, Gramps is asleep literally every time he's out in public, so God only knows what he's doing in private.
Well, I think that if you ask people what they think, which is always a wise thing to do, they will tell you that the reason I voted for Donald Trump is because he said he was going to get out of forever wars because our investments in wars were hurting our pocketbooks. And he's actually tried to figure out a way to do the exact opposite of what he said he was going to do, and people feel betrayed, number one, because he lied to them again. But more importantly, the war is causing actually the costs to go up. And so these people are saying, wait a minute, I'm really confused about what you're doing. You're focused on bombs and ballrooms, but you're not focused on my pocketbook. And I may care about democracy. I may care about a bunch of other stuff. But what I really care about is supporting myself, making my rent, making my car payment, putting food on the table for my kids. And they can't do that right now. And no matter how many times he says they're okay, they're telling him, no, I'm not. And now I'm pissed. And so that is why we've spent this much time talking to working class people, which actually swung the election in his favor and are really up for grabs. And we're going to go get them. And I think those people have been very clear about what they want, what they care about, and why the president's not delivering for them. And they want to make a different choice now.
This is your new ad. Let me play this. This is for an Iowa race. I'll play it. We'll talk about it on the other side.
I'm Brad. I'm a personal trainer. I live here in Iowa. I voted for Donald Trump because he said no new wars and we're going to bring costs down. The opposite happened. And now I'm paying for it. Costs haven't went down at all. And Joe Mitchell is right there in lockstep with Trump on all of this. He's not really one of us. I think he just moved into the district to run for Congress. That's everything that we hate about politics. Someone like Joe Mitchell will never know what my life is like.
This is so brilliant. And there are two things that I think are so on the nose about this moment. And I struggled to get at it in 2 hours, and you get at it right there in about 30 seconds. That's why the ad people are so smart. But this idea that because we incessantly cover his impact on Republican primaries, we ignore the toxicity. I mean, poll after poll show that what Americans hate most about Republicans is that they do everything Trump says. And this is almost turning the whole anti-establishment wave that lifted Trump twice, almost almost in 2020. But this is sort of where a lot of the heat is in his movement. To, stick it to the elites, stick it to anyone that rigs anything against us, to the, sort of fancy pants consultants. This is taking that away from them. And the other piece is about this political opportunism. He doesn't even live here. He's not one of us. He's in lockstep with Trump. Just talk about why this is working.
Well, first of all, great ads are the ones that are simple, that are true, and that are authentic. Words in that ad are his words. They came directly from the folks. They say it over and over and over again. The difference is that Donald Trump is so egomaniacal. He thinks that everybody voted for him will never think about voting for anybody else. Well, they don't really care that much about Donald Trump unless Donald Trump is going to help them. These people are really hurting. And so whether they're a personal trainer or a farmer or a mom or a dad, they're saying the same thing over and over and over again, and which is the president has lost focus. He's not focused on me. He's focused on himself. He's focused on hurting his enemies. He's focused on the war. He's focused on the ballroom. In the meantime, my life is just hard as hell. And they are very frustrated. The thing that we're doing now is we're playing in every district that we possibly can play in. We're expanding the playing field. And Republicans are having a very difficult time. Even in +3, +7 Trump districts, his numbers are in the toilet. I mean, they're really, really lower and louder than the boos were last night in Madison Square Garden.
Let's go back to the boos. This is Stephen A. Smith on Trump there last night.
My other side came out last night when I recognized that businesses that are accustomed to being patronized were compromised by you because you showed up. The crowd that surrounded the Madison Square Garden and its surrounding areas, you compromised. I thought you were about the economy. I thought you were about helping New Yorkers because you love New York. I thought you were about making money for people. What happened to the parking garages? How much money did they make? What happened to the local restaurants in the immediate vicinity of Madison Square Garden? How much money did they make? We know you've made a lot of money.
I'm not always sure what to do with the things he says, but I would cover this sort of as tension inside the family, right? This is calling BS basically from inside the political coalition that elected him.
I think that's right. And I think that was the gamble they made last night. And you're seeing it everywhere. You're seeing it with the folks who were Biden-Trump voters. You're seeing it with the folks who, for personal tax reasons were with him 3 times. Some of the folks who thought he was speaking for them. At some point, he's someone who is much better being on the outside telling lies about what he'll do and what's wrong.
What he'll do when he topples the power structure.
And, you know, I actually think people are pretty smart about this, and they can see that this is a completely selfish opportunism. And, you know, he even knows it. My focus is on states. He is so panicked that he is calling state officials to try to save himself in the midterms. So, you know, there's a part of him that understands
the reptilian survival stuff.
Right. The votes won't be there. And so, you know, there's two things going on. Of course, you know, I'm untouchable. And on the other hand, personally getting on the phone to state lawmakers. Imagine that as a president of the United States, personally on the phone to state lawmakers, save me, draw new congressional maps, save me, change your voting laws.
I want to show you a map, Ashley, that reminded me of that hurricane that he put a Sharpie marker on. This is his plunging poll numbers. This is from the Economist YouGov poll. And the precipitous drop of the second term. The top line is Trump's first term. The bottom line is the second term. I mean, it correlates to the start of the war in Iran, but even before that, when he you know announced the tariff. I mean, everything he has done since Inauguration Day, the political retribution, the obsession with his political enemies, the destruction of the Department of Justice, the gutting of the FBI, so we are vulnerable at a time of war with Iran, the purges, the destruction of USAID, the debacle that was Doge. Every single thing has hurt him. Every single time he carries around his little picture of a gold ballroom, his poll numbers go down. Does that figure into anything they try to do with him from a day-to-day basis?
Let's just start with the ballroom. That's one of these striking things where even his supporters, you know, the donors around him, advisors, political people, they all wish he would stop talking about that. And again, that's sort of a metaphor for all of these things that are about himself, about his legacy, and distractions from voters and, frankly, what he promised voters. And the irony is voters, especially his supporters and especially that broad coalition, give him credit, that voted for him in 2024, would be more sympathetic or willing to forgive something like the ballroom if things were going well for them, if the economy felt better, if their jobs felt more secure, if their life felt less harried and less stressful. But what the ballroom has become is this big, golden, gleaming metaphor for a president who is not focused on them and what they care about and only focused on himself. And again, his team is aware of that. Certainly the team that is the political team that is focused on, for his own political purposes, trying to hold the House and hold the Senate, is very aware and is desperate for him to stop doing that. But as you point out, he loves those poster boards, those sort of high school diorama style things of the ballroom.
It's so bizarre that no one can take the AI rendering of a gold ballroom out of his hands for 5 minutes for him to talk about anything else. And if they do, he goes back to the picture of a body of water that's taller than buildings, a graphic. I don't even know who made that. Like, he clearly doesn't know how to print. Someone made that for him. I don't even know what it's supposed to show, that the pool is longer than the building. I mean, it is absolute nonsense. When we come back, we'll talk about that more. We're also going to turn to Daniel's book, talk about Plan B, right? Is that what we called it? Forget Congress, keeping a check on Donald Trump. What about state capitals and state legislatures? How Democrats can fight and save our democracy by embracing that front. It's the focus of Daniel's new book, The Fourth State.
At best, stretching the limits of the Constitution and just do whatever they want was proven untrue because the state and the city would not cooperate. The power of state governments and city governments, cities of course are created by states, to decide what happens within their own domains is really significant. I think a big story in Minneapolis is an enormous amount of courage on the streets and the impact of federal law enforcement or the federal government trying to just operate as those states are subsidiary to them. They're not.
Yeah.
And the state of Minnesota, the cities of Minneapolis and St. Paul said, we're not going to cooperate. And that's what made it fundamentally not viable to do the kind of takeover that Trump thought he kind of could assume dominance in.
I mean, Mitch, it was also a mayor that said, get the F out of my city, and a governor I don't remember if Governor Walz dropped an F-bomb, but I mean, it's also the quality, and they were Democrats, of people who were leading that city and that state.
Well, I haven't read Daniel's book yet, but I'm looking forward to it. As you know, I was a state legislator for 16 years. I was a lieutenant governor of Louisiana and the mayor of New Orleans. So I'm a local government guy. There are two things that I want to say. Number one, Washington is broken. Almost 100% of people of America agree on that, and Donald Trump's taking it into the toilet and going to make it worse. But Daniel's right about this. The only thing governors and mayors cannot do is declare war and sign treaties. They can do pretty much everything else. And when a governor and a mayor in a state, whether it's a red state and a blue governor, or blue and blue, or red and red, there's a huge amount of innovation that takes place across America. And they don't have to have permission from the president or from Congress. So if Congress is going to be broken, people have the agency to do great things in this state. They are, in fact, the laboratories of innovation and change. And there's just some great examples of a lot of wonderful things going on in the cities. And you know what? Washington's going to stay broken for a bit. It doesn't mean that we can't get anything done in the country. It would be better if it did work. It would be better if it wasn't hostile. But you know what? We don't have to wait around for the world to burn, as Donald Trump's trying to make it happen in such a short period of time.
I also feel like it could get us to a place of zen, right? Like, let him paint all of the, I don't know, what is he painting? Paint everything gold and blue and whatever he wants, and we'll take care of everything else. Ashley Parker, Mitch Landrieu, Daniel Squadron, thank you so much for this conversation. The book, The Fourth Branch, is out right now. Coming up for us, how one of the most unifying sporting FIFA World Cup will kick off, and Donald Trump's cruel immigration enforcement agenda is already messing it up. FIFA confirmed that a referee from Somalia who was set to officiate at the World Cup has been denied entry to the United States and will no longer be able to participate in the tournament. Omar Artan arrived at Miami International Airport on a flight from Istanbul Saturday. He was barred from entering the country following a routine inspection. He said this, quote, "I am very, very disappointed." He said that in a New York Times interview, a telephone interview from Istanbul, the city he had been flown to after he was refused entry here. Quote, "I'm just simply a referee who's trying to live his dream, the biggest dream of my life, to come to the World Cup. I had the right papers and everything. I had the right visa," Mr. Artan said, adding that he had also shown documentation from FIFA as well as photographs of his career over a decade as a professional referee. Border officials also checked online material detailing Mr. Artan's career, he said. He was named Referee of the Year 2025 by the Confederation of African Football, which governs soccer in Africa. And the vice captain and star player for Iraq's team, Ayman Hussein, was also detained when the Iraq team arrived in the U.S. this week. According to Reuters, Hussein was held at Chicago's O'Hare Airport for almost 7 hours after arriving with his international teammates and staff members. I want to bring into our coverage Pulitzer Prize. That's the first time I've had that in your title. Pulitzer Prize winning host of the podcast, Pablo Torre Finds Out. Contributor Pablo Torre. Also joining us, political analyst Molly Jong-Fast, whose Pulitzer is coming. It's coming.
Yes.
She's the host of Fast Politics and a New York Times contributing opinion writer. What's going on?
You know, this is foreseen. I wish there was something beyond, look, we kind of told you so, but this is an administration that has decided to make theater out of its immigration policy in general. And now when they host the biggest party in the world, that's what the World Cup is. It's a giant party. It is the global village. Everybody comes to the host nation, and the host nation happens to be ruled by an administration that you cannot trust. Fundamentally, when it comes to which story are they telling and which story are you buying? Are you buying the journalism? Are you buying the testimony from people who are saying this is the greatest ref from his part of the world, this is his reward? Or are you buying the noises that are now leaking out from the administration saying this is one of those bad hombres? And it's like, well, great. Here we have a familiar dynamic that is familiar across the news cycle to date.
What's interesting to me about covering the same story, which is sort of the brutal and clunky nature of his immigration policies, is to see it encroach on a new world that there are a lot of people that come here from other countries to play in a lot of sports, basketball, baseball in particular, but to see this event, which is such a global sports story, impacted negatively by his heinous immigration policies. Is it an oversight? Is it intentional? I mean, what does your reporting suggest?
Malice and incompetence are really hard to tell apart. And at some point, my reporting suggests the difference is vanishing. That by signing up to do this and being a steward of this institution unto itself. Like the World Cup, I should be clear about this. It is run by FIFA, and FIFA is the apex predator of all the corrupt global sporting bodies, right?
Didn't they give Trump a fake trophy?
Correct. This is the fake Peace Prize.
They didn't get much for that.
No, and in fact, one wonders, will they award it ever again?
Yeah.
It seems like a bit of a bespoke sort of thing. So I'm not here to fall on my fainting couch and say the World Cup is pure. It is always this tool of, frankly, autocracy. That's its history. But when it comes to, therefore, why does the United States want in? Well, it raises all of these other questions of, look, if it was up to me, of course, the United States would be a host, but it would be done with a level of transparency, with a level of commitment to not be yet another autocratic regime in a line of autocratic regimes that have signed up for this tournament to profit off of it. Yeah. At the expense of not only the characters for whom this is ostensibly for, the players, the coaches, the referees. They would also do it because, hey, there's the potential of proving that all of these countries that may otherwise be at war with each other can coexist. You know, that's the Olympic ideal. That is what the World Cup could be. And we're not getting any of that because, of course, every war is also a story of conflict of interest in this country right now.
What is interesting to me, I said, immigration is one of the oldest Trump stories we've been covering now for a decade. So is appeasement.
Right.
And so this sort of BS trophy they gave him obviously didn't work that well if their referees can't get into the country.
Yeah, I mean, there's a really important detail in this story. I was reading it before, and his immigration interview ended after 11 hours. Like,
oh my God.
Yeah. So think about this. The guy gets off his flight from Istanbul. He has all of the right papers. He has all of the right documentation. He is known as the referee of the year in Africa.
Like last year.
Yeah, last year. So he's clearly a very serious person at this very serious sport. And he gets questioned for 11 hours. He actually gets sent somewhere else. And then he gets sent back to Istanbul. And so I think when you look at this administration, you cannot take immigration in a vacuum. You have to pull back and you have to say, like, this administration that has children dying of measles, that has a screwworms are back, right? And I'm going to do you a favor right now and say, do not Google them. But they are a really scary parasite that
cattle, right?
Cattle, and it's going to make beef more expensive. We have all this like incompetence, all these things that were things we didn't have to worry about 3 years ago are back. And so I think it is really important. Like, it may be incompetence, it may be racism, it may be that that the immigration policies are racist. It's all of that. And the idea that they were going to have anything, an international sporting event where people from other nations were going to have to come here and try to get in and have to deal with this level of incompetence. I mean, remember, we were in the longest Homeland Security shutdown until a few weeks ago. I mean, this is not how government is supposed to work.
Well, and we have another guy talking about shutting down airports over sanctuary state parks. I have to take a break. We're much more on the other side. No one's going anywhere. We'll all be right back.
مولاي صل وسلم دائما أبدا على الحبيب الذي أجاءنا هدى يا رب بالنور أكرم مهجتي واغفر ذنوبي وهون كربتي أنت الرجاء إذا ضاقت بنا الدنيا وبذكرك العالي تحيا روحنا الله الله يا مولانا أنت هادينا. الله الله يا رحمن، بنورك اجعل قلوبنا إيمان. صلوا على طه الرسول محمد، خير البرية والنور المؤيد، من بالصلاة عليه نال راحة، والقلب من أنواره يتجدد. يا ربنا اجعلنا على درب الهدى، واختم بالخيرات أعمارنا مدى. مولاي صل وسلم دائما أبدا على الحبيب المصطفى